Hey everyone, so welcome to the Thursday edition of Locked On Penguins. Going to be a little bit different to start this one because we recorded our Predators Penguins preview before the P.O. Joseph trade dropped. So we're going to do a quick couple minutes on the trade here to start the show, and then we'll drop you right into our Penguins versus Predators preview for tonight's game. So Hunter, let's get right into it. The Penguins announced this evening that they have reacquired defenseman Pierre-Olivier Joseph from the St. Louis Blues for the low cost of future considerations. POJ rejoins the Penguins, and it couldn't be a more convenient time for them with Marcus Pettersson out of the lineup. And we have talked day and night about this defensive core, but overall, no risk, high reward trade here for the Penguins. They have a lot of familiarity, obviously, with POJ, and he knows the coaching staff, he knows the system, he knows the organization. So in your estimation, Hunter, where do you see POJ fitting as he returns to the Penguins?
Not sure the reward is high, but there's definitely no risk. I think it's a okay reward if he plays well, which that could definitely be the case. But you got him for free. It's fine depth. That's really all there is to this move. Marcus Pettersson, Kyle Dubas said on the GM show tonight that he'll be out for the next 2 to 3 weeks. So that's really good news for the Penguins defensive group. So he's not going to be out that long. So he'll slide back in once he's available to return. But right now, until Pettersson comes back, and this is just a strict guess, I think they're going to go Pickering Letang on the top pairing because that pairing has been pretty solid since they started doing it. I know Pickering was a bit rough on Tuesday against the Kings, but I would still go back to it. And then maybe Joseph with Carlson, and then they might do Grzelcyk and Graves together. At least that's what I would do. I understand that Grzelcyk Graves, the vibes there could be a bit mixed just because of the way both have played for the majority of this season. But I feel like you need to see what Joseph can do in that top four role next to one of those top two defensemen until Pettersson is ready to come back. Because once Pettersson comes back, you're going to slide Joseph down anyway. And don't get me wrong, people. I don't think P.O. Joseph is some savior to this defensive group. We all know their struggles defensively this year, but I would rather have him in the lineup over someone like Ryan Shea, Nathan Klerman, etc. So, it's totally good depth. They also have injuries to Sebastian Aho and Jackson Ivany right now. So this is a totally welcome move. I saw some people freaking out about this on social media saying like, oh, where's the big move? Why are you just getting these cheap quality depth pieces? And it's like, they're not contending this year. They're not going to be contending next year, probably either. So I don't know why so many people were freaking out about getting a player for basically nothing. If there's one funny thing about the deal, Pat, it's they were like, oh, we're going to non-tender you during the offseason, sign Matt Grzelcyk. Oh, but now we're going to bring you back 6 months later. Just a little bit funny to me. That's all.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say this, and this is obviously a little bit of armchair general managing and coaching from my standpoint. I do think that the Penguins, both management and coaching staff, are really starting to see the writing on the wall when it comes to Ryan Graves, because not only has he been playing on the bottom pair and has seen some scratchings, he has also seen, when in the lineup, a real decrease in his ice time. So now that you see somebody who has familiarity, has played a lot of games for the Penguins coming back into the fold now, even with the Marcus Pettersson injury, I'd be very curious to see what happens with Graves now moving forward, because clearly he has fallen out of some kind of favor, even to the extent with Mike Sullivan, who we know is not one to bury players, but he did have kind of a curious quote after the Kings game when asked what went right for the team and how the team responded to not having Marcus Pettersson. And he basically said, well, I think we did good with this, that, and the other. And, Graver, whatever he called him, said played within himself. And that's a backhanded compliment if I've ever heard one. So also you brought up Klerman. In a corresponding move, they did reassign him to Wilkes-Barre Scranton. But again, not a lot of risk on this move, not a high reward, but enough of a reward if he plays well. He's making less than $1 million, and he'll be an RFA if they choose to tender him or not again at the end of the season. And it's only a $950,000 cap hit, so not a lot of move on the cap.
What happens when Pettersson comes back? Like, does Joseph stay in the lineup or does he come out? Because, you're going to have Pettersson, Karlsson, probably. I would probably keep Pickering and Letang together, but on that bottom pairing, does Ryan Graves come out? Does Joseph play with Grzelcyk? That's going to be the question there. And, based on how, Graves kept getting scratched for a little bit earlier on, I could see them going to Grzelcyk and Joseph on the bottom pairing. Yeah, I know it would be a bit weird to have two lefties on that same pairing, but I could see Sullivan still doing that.
Yeah, it's definitely an option now. But like you said, a lot more depth now, especially once Pettersson comes back. You also figure Pettersson is probably still, regardless of the team's play, as good as gone come the deadline. Right. So just another body to have on the blue line at the NHL level. But that'll do it for this little cut-in for the Thursday edition of Locked On Penguins. We will now send you to our previously recorded preview episode where we talk about the Penguins and Predators, the World Junior Championships, and of course, honor a legend who announced his retirement on Wednesday. So enjoy that, and we will talk to you once again on Friday. The Penguins will look to keep up their winning ways against a struggling Nashville tonight in Tennessee. And we're also going to remember the career of a Penguins legend and two-time Stanley Cup champion. All of that and more on this edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Patrick Damp. You can follow me across all social media at synonym for wet. Joined as always by my co-host, the one and only Hunter Hodes. You can follow him on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can give our show's account a follow at LO_Penguins. And of course, we appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Don't forget that we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. Plus, if you're following us on YouTube, don't forget to hit the notification button so you can be among the first to be notified when we drop our daily Monday through Friday episodes. Before we get you ready for Penguins Preds tonight, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Penguins will head to Nashville tonight to take on the Nashville Predators, and the Penguins, they're trending up. The Predators, oh boy, they have been trending down pretty much all season long. It has been a nightmare of a season for the Predators, who realistically came into this season, I would say, with at the very least Stanley Cup aspirations, maybe not expectation, but you look at all of the moves they made this offseason, bringing in Jonathan Marchessault, bringing in Steven Stamkos after all of that drama with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And you looked at this team, and it was realistic to think that they were one of the better teams in the West on paper. You still have Roman Josi and Philip Forsberg. Ryan O'Reilly is there. Luke Evangelista has shown to be an effective forward. Alexandre Carrier is a solid player. Gustav Nyquist, Brady Shea. This is a pretty solid team on paper, but in practice, it has been absolutely miserable for the Predators. They currently sit tied for last in the Central Division with the rebuilding, supposed to be bad, Chicago Blackhawks. The Predators have a record of 9-17-6, good for 24 points and a point percentage of .375. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong for the Nashville Predators. The only saving grace for this team, and God bless him, he is like Atlas holding up the globe for the Nashville Predators this year. That's goaltender UC Saros. He has a 263 goals against average and a 911 save percentage. So, Hunter, this should be a very winnable game for the Penguins because despite the Predators coming off of a win against the also struggling New York Rangers, they are 2-5-3 in their last 10, and it's just been bleak in Smashville, man.
I don't think anyone in the hockey world saw this coming, especially after how aggressive Nashville was this summer. You bring in Brady Shea, you bring in Jonathan Marchessault, you sign Steven Stamkos. You're basically telling the hockey world, oh, we're going for it this year and next year. Like, we want to be Stanley Cup contenders. I had them finishing third in my Central Division rankings for Locked On NHL that I host every Thursday with Nick Zararis. He does Locked On Oilers and a Liberty Blue podcast with Andrew Toney. I had them third because I bought into what Barry Trotz was selling, but it has been awful this year. They can't score. That's the biggest thing, Pat. You ran that stat before we started recording. They are 32nd in the league in goals for. That's crazy to me, considering Andrew Brunette is their head coach.
Just to make sure you got that correct, though, I don't mean to interrupt you, Hunter. Goals for per game, not goals scored. But when you do look at the league statistics overall and you go 2 goals for, they are way down there. They're not last, but they are second last with 72. The only team that has scored less goals than them are the Anaheim Ducks, and it's only by 1. Anaheim has 71. The Preds have 72. So you're right. They cannot score.
Right. Dead last in goals for per game, but in goals for, you don't want to be right down there with Anaheim, where it's been a lot of crappy hockey for a lot of years at this rate. And just going back to my point, Andrew Brunette, he is a offense first base coach. The fact that they are all the way down there, again, stunning. Also, when you look at the talent on this team, Philip Forsberg, he's coming off one heck of a year last year. He's one of the best pure snipers in the league. You have Steven Stamkos, who is still very deadly, especially on the power play. You have Roman Josi, they're do it all defensively. We still have to see if he's going to play in this game. He did not play against the Rangers. He's been day-to-day for a little bit now. As of this recording, it looks like he's not going to play. But again, that can all change later in the day on Thursday. But if he doesn't play, that is a big loss for Nashville, considering everything he does in all 3 zones. I mean, you look at the defense without him, for example, you know, they have Luke Shen there, Brady Shea, of course. Outside of that, feels like it's a lot of NPCs, if I'm being honest with you, man. Like, I don't even recognize a couple of these players on their back end. It's pretty bleak once Yoshi's not on the lineup. Again, Shea, totally fine defenseman. I don't think he's a top pairing guy at this point. I think on a contending team, he's probably a second pairing guy, but it still stinks that Yoshi's not there because I love watching him. But biggest thing for the Penguins in this one, you got to start fast. Again, enough of the slow starts. We talked about that during our Wednesday episode. But also, I want to see the same intensity that they had against the Kings, Maple Leafs, and the other really good teams that they've beaten during this stretch. It's very easy to fall into this quote-unquote, you know, trap game mentality where, oh, we're going in, we're playing a bad team. But those teams are still going to play their butts off every single night. You know, to the Nashville, even though they're dead last in the league, the players there are probably thinking, hey, if we can string together a few wins here, we can start building some confidence and maybe getting back to, you know, the level that some people thought we were going to play at this year. Obviously, that's a long ways away from happening, but these players are still going to play very hard. And the Predators, they have the talent to burn you every single shift. So the Penguins, they're going to have to play very diligently, especially defensively, and they're going to have to get a lot of traffic in front of Saros, man. You mentioned it with Saros. He has been fantastic for Nashville. He is top 10 in goals saved above expected this year with right around 8. He has a 911 save percentage and a 2.63 goals against average. He's doing all that on one of the worst teams in the league. You know you're going to get when you go against him every night. Not the biggest goalie, but his movement is great, and he's able to make every save out there. So the Penguins, they're going to have to make his life a living hell if they want to get out of there with a win too.
He is one of the goalies in the NHL where it's truer than true that you have to obstruct his views. You have to get in front of him. You have to crash the net because, like you said, not one of the biggest goalies in the league, but moves very well, extremely athletic. He makes a lot of saves that you would not expect any other goalie to make because very similarly to a former Penguin and a legend, Marc-Andre Fleury, he relies a lot on athleticism because he's very quick. He's very sharp with his movements. So it's not so much like other goalies where you think, okay, get him moving side to side, get him off his angles, because he can push off and get side to side better than most in the National Hockey League. So it's imperative tonight, if you're the Penguins, to get in front of him. Do not let him see the puck. So again, it will be another Michael Bunting type of game where he has to live in front of the net. He has to create chaos with Saros and the rest of the Predators defensemen, because that'll only aid in the Penguins getting a win tonight. The other thing that you said that I agree with, you have to get off to a fast start, because this is not a statistical thing. This is not an X's and O's thing. This is a team that is down extremely bad this year. If you start quick against this team, you get an early goal or two, or at the very least, you get some good sustained pressure early. This is a mentally fragile team right now because of how badly they've struggled. So if you get that quick start, whether it's a goal, some sustained pressure, whatever, very real world where a team like the Predators mentality switches to, oh, here we go again. We cannot get anything right. We don't have the ability to win. So if you're the Penguins, this is more so than when you're playing the really good teams. You get off to a fast start against the Preds, you can bury them early.
Oh, 100%. And I feel like also this is another potential big game opportunity for Evgeny Malkin. He had a really good game on Tuesday against the Kings. He's played Nashville really good throughout his career. 21 points in 20 games against Nashville throughout his career. Also 9 points in 11 games at Bridgestone Arena. So he loves killing the Preds. Wouldn't be surprised if that happens again, especially with the level that he played at on Tuesday. You can tell that the goals, they're going to start potentially coming in bunches for him and Sidney Crosby. I feel like this could be a game too where maybe he gets a bounce or two to go his way. Yeah, I know he's playing against UC Saros, one of the 5 best goaltenders on the planet, but the process has been very much there for Crosby. If this is the game where he gets a bounce or two to go his way, look out, because I think the floodgates would really start opening after that. The Penguins have been playing Nashville really well in recent years. They're 9-2-2 in their last 13 games against them, and also 16-4-2 in their last 22 games against them, dating back to 2010. So this is a team that the Penguins usually have success against. I mean, we also, what happened in the 2017 Stanley Cup final, of course, as well, right? And stay tuned for that a little bit later on in the show. We talk about Justin Schultz. But again, the biggest thing for me, I just don't want to let down, man. You just had a great emotional win against the Kings. You came back not once, but twice in that game. You don't want to have a letdown here. You've gotten yourself back into the race a bit. You got to keep that going and bang 2 points here against a team that is really struggling. Yes, I know they just beat the Rangers, who are very much struggling right now as well. I did not think the Penguins would pass them in the standings heading into this game, let alone potentially all season, considering how the Rangers started, but that's the type of year it's been up in Manhattan. But again, have to have a good start here. Got to get traffic on Saros. No letdown, and potential big game from the Stars. And hey, they could walk out of there with 2 points. And hey, maybe some depth scoring would also go a long way.
Would be real nice. Penguins, Predators, 8 o'clock tonight at Bridgestone Arena. You can catch the game on Sportsnet Pittsburgh. Big 2 points on the line. When we come back, though, for once in a long time, we actually have a reason other than just rooting for Team USA to watch the World Junior Championships. A trio of Penguins prospects are heading to the World Juniors. Hunter and I will talk about that when we come back. But first, we've got to tell you about a couple of sponsors, starting with Prize Picks. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you love sports, you're going to love Prize Picks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on the action. And now you can win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. When your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out, and you can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. This week on Prize Picks, I'm obviously looking at the hockey board. I think Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin are due for a breakout. The process has been there, so I am really looking at them to get onto the goal scoring sheet. And it's so simple to make my picks and have fun with friends while potentially cashing out fast. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. Prize Picks, run your game. And we've got one more sponsor to tell you about, and that is Select Quote. The World Series, the Super Bowl, the Olympics, the world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing, and that is teamwork. Teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. Select Quote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. Select Quote is one of America's top leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less, while Select Quote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. You invest so much time to take care of yourself and be the healthiest, best version of you. Select Quote's exclusive policies can reward that effort. If you're in good health, they work with carriers that could get you same-day coverage for up to $5 million with no medical exam required. And these policies are more affordable than you might think. You can get coverage for up to $1 million for as little as $20 per month. Head to selectquote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. Select Quote, they shop, you save. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Just go to selectquote.com/lockedonnhl today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. All right, welcome back in to the Thursday edition of Locked On Penguins. I'm Patrick Damp. That's Hunter Hodes. And like I said before we threw to break, for the first time in a long time, we're going to have a vested interest in watching the World Junior Championships, not just because we want to root for Team USA, but because a trio of Penguins prospects are heading to the tournament. They are Tanner Howe for Team Canada, Emil Pieniemi and Kalle Kangas will go for Team Finland. All three of them will take part in the yearly tournament that's happening in Ottawa on December 26th through January 5th. And we got to start with a guy who we loved in the preseason. We thought there was an outside shot that he could have made the Penguins roster, but ultimately he was sent back to juniors, and that's Tanner Howe. The 19-year-old 46th overall pick this past draft has been crushing it in the WHL. These are the numbers that you need to know. He has played 249 games in his junior career, 223 career games, got a little ahead of myself, and he has tallied 249 points, 101 goals, 148 assists, and he's off to a pretty good start this year. 16 points in 16 games, split between the Regina Pats and the Calgary Hitmen. 9 goals, 7 assists. This kid, I think he is going to do really well at this tournament. I also think he is a name to watch next training camp.
100%. And he did very well for himself at the showcase or their camp, whatever you want to call it, before the roster was officially announced. He was awesome for that. And I'm going to read this verbatim from Stephen Ellis of Daily Faceoff, because he had a few players in his standout section of the article, and he put Tanner Howe in there. And he said he made a positive impression from the get-go. He was the best forward during the all-Canadian scrimmage and then set out the first games against U Sports. That was a good sign he made the team, but then they had him play on the power play and penalty kill, and I thought he held up very well. The fact that he was the best forward during the all-Canada scrimmage, Pat, that says something, considering how much talent that Canada has heading into that tournament. He's playing some lights out hockey right now. And actually on Tuesday, he was taking first power play reps for Canada. Do you want to guess where he was on that unit?
Front of the net?
Yes, sir. He is right at the front of the net, being a rat like he always has been throughout his career. And I do think he's going to make for a pretty good NHLer once he gets up here. Next year, I'm not sure if he's going to be ready next year. Outside shot, I think Brunick is a bit closer than Tanner Howe, in my opinion. But the year after, certainly there'll be a shot. Again, outside shot next year, but the year after, I think there's definitely a bit of a better shot. But I am super stoked to watch him play. And also for Pianiemi, I mean, this year he's playing for the Kingston Frontenacs. Is how you
got it. Kingston Frontenacs.
For Kingston Frontenacs. I totally almost screwed that up, so I apologize on that. And he is playing very well this year. 4 goals, 34 points in 32 games. I'm excited to see what he can do for Team Finland. And then Kalle Kangas doesn't have a lot of production this year, but I'm still excited to see what he can do in this tournament as well.
Yeah, and with Kangas' thing, we always say this when it comes to players playing internationally. You do have to take it with a little bit of grain of salt because bigger ice, different style of hockey. So you want to weight their statistics just a tad differently because it's not like playing in the Canadian Junior League or the American League or NCAA where you're playing what is essentially pro hockey overseas, and it's just a different game. So that said, he has been looking pretty well playing with what is essentially European pros. So that is a really positive sign. The other thing for Kangas is he has international experience. He has represented Finland at the U20s as well as the U18s. And most recently, he won bronze at the Hlinka Gretzky Cup and tallied 2 points in 5 games. So he is getting more international looks, which always good for younger player development because you're being forced to play with a lot better players than say you would in a European pro league. And he has conducted himself really well for now a 19-year-old, but at the time, 18, 17 years old. So 3 really promising prospects for the Penguins going into the World Juniors. So like I said, that begins December 26th. If you are a diehard hockey fan, you know the day after Christmas and right through the new year, that is the time, especially if you're Americans like us, you turn on NHL Network and you watch the World Junior Championships. Hunter, anything else you want to add about these 3 as they head to the World Juniors and before we head to break?
Honestly, not much. I guess the only thing is I wish Harrison Brunick was healthy for this tournament, man, just because he's banged up right now. Really wanted to see how he would play, though, if he were healthy.
Yeah, especially after the training camp that he had. That was I genuinely thought if it wasn't for the logjam on the Penguins roster, he would have had a shot. But I definitely think, along with Tanner Howe, those 2 will be the biggest names to watch going into camp next season. But that is going to do it here for our middle segment. When we come back, we got to say goodbye to a 2-time Stanley Cup champion with the Pittsburgh Penguins and the guy who spawned a million memes during those Stanley Cup celebrations. And we will do that when we come back right after this, because we got to tell you about our last sponsor, and that is FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, say this weekend when the Steelers take on the Ravens this Saturday with the AFC North on the line, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to the Thursday edition of Locked On Penguins. I'm Patrick Damp, joined as always by the one and only Hunter Hodes, and it was made official on Wednesday, a Penguins legend, and I know I got people laughing at this because he was only here for a couple of seasons, but won 2 Stanley Cups, really developed into the player that people thought he would be when he was drafted with the Penguins, and that is defenseman Justin Schultz. Officially hung up the skates on Wednesday, announced his retirement. I want to start with my favorite thing, and the name is escaping me. I know you'll probably remember it. Our listeners will probably remember it, but I will never forget the tweet when he was traded to the Penguins, and it said, "It looks like the Penguins are getting a defenseman," and I can't believe this name is still escaping me, but the Edmonton writer that replied and said, "They're not getting a defenseman, they're getting Justin Schultz."
I'm trying to remember who it was that said it. So I know Jesse's tweet also had someone said the worst defenseman in the league or something like that. I thought it was Steve Simmons, but I could be dead wrong.
I don't think it was Steve Simmons, but either way, this is something now, with the jokes aside, that I wanted to bring up, because if you pull up his hockey reference page, he spent 5 years with the Penguins, 4 years with the Oilers, 2 years with the Kraken, and 2 years with the Capitals. And looking at his stats, Hunter, would you believe me if I told you that every stop in his NHL career, he was a minus player, except for when he was a Pittsburgh Penguin? When he was with Edmonton, a brutal minus 78. Some of that is performance. Some of that was the dark ages for the Edmonton Oilers. They were bad. Seattle, he was a minus 19. With the Caps, he was a minus 3. But with the Penguins, a plus 43.
They had the right system for him, and they put him in the right situations to succeed. That's the biggest reason why he had so much success with the Penguins. Mike Sullivan knew where to deploy him in the lineup, and he also knew who to deploy him against, especially in 2016. He wasn't getting, those top pairing minutes that Chris Letang was getting, for example. He was getting, late second to bottom pairing minutes against, some third liners, some fourth liners, and he was eating those up. And then once he got his confidence back, he was able to take that and go to even bigger heights next year, especially without Chris Letang, where he was playing on that first and second pairing, and he was getting the team's absolute best, and he was eating those minutes up, man, especially in the playoffs. I put out a tweet on Wednesday, and I think it's easily one of Jim Rutherford's most underappreciated moves during his tenure. He was everything the Penguins needed for part of their defensive group in 2016, and he more than stepped up in 2017 was when Letang was out for the entire playoffs. He was fantastic throughout that run. I'll never forget the absolute banger of a goal that he scored against Ottawa Game 7. I know it wasn't the game winner, but that was still a banger. The one against Washington, especially Game 4 when they went up 3-1, that was a banger of a goal. I could watch those slap shots from the point all day long, man. And then just for meme purposes, obviously the Schultz chug. Oh, yeah, you have the shirt on, Walking on Sunshine from the Pittsburgh Clothing Company. Again, another tremendous shirt from them. And if you don't have any shirts from them, well, you should change that because they do tremendous work. You have him and Oli Mata getting drunk off their butts during the parade. The next year, you had Oli Mata just laying on his balcony in his apartment downtown, just passed out after having way too many beers. That whole parade was awesome, but just seeing how great of a fit he was in 16, 17, the way he was able to quarterback the power play, the way he was able to eat up those 5-on-5 minutes, he was awesome. I know it didn't end the right way for Schultz with how his play dipped a little bit during those final season or two, but he was still everything they needed in 16 and 17. And I hope he enjoys retirement so much. He did so much for this organization, and he'll always be Penguin royalty to me.
For sure. And I absolutely agree with you that I think it's one of the more underrated and underappreciated moves of the Jim Rutherford era. And it was also a masterclass for the coaching staff on the Penguins, because this guy looked like he was going to be the closest thing to a bust after getting drafted by he's actually drafted by Anaheim in 2008 in the second round. But there was a great pedigree for this guy. He looked like he was going to become, at least it was believed he was going to become one of the better defensemen in the league. And he really came into his own with the Penguins. Now, did he live up to the amount of hype behind him? Not really, but he became a very solid, very serviceable NHL defenseman. And when he came into his own, like you said, was the Stanley Cup run in 2017, because in the 16 run, in and out of the lineup a little bit in the playoffs, he only played 15 games throughout that run, put up 4 assists. But then with Letang out in 17, plays all 21 games, 4 goals, 9 assists, 13 points, really stepped up in Letang's absence as that team defended their Stanley Cup championship. And like you said, huge part of that team's success. But that was the other thing I wanted to touch on that I hinted at a little bit ago, was you hinted at it a little bit as well. Coaching staff really figured him out, because he could have been a waste of space. And I know it's a meme now about they're not getting a defenseman, they're getting Justin Schultz. Yeah, that was tongue in cheek and a little bit mean, but the way he played in Edmonton was a real world where that was a realistic thing to say, because he was not good with the Edmonton Oilers, and Sullivan and company put him on a bottom pair. They deployed him in mostly favorable positions. He builds his confidence up. He builds his game up. And by the time they get to defending the Stanley Cup, both in the 16-17 playoffs, but in the season as well, they deployed him in a lot of high leverage situations, and he passed with flying colors. So really great to see him rehabilitate his career and his image. Has some solid play with both the Capitals as well as the Kraken. So hats off to Justin Schultz on what was a great career, 2 Stanley Cups, all the best in retirement. But that is going to do it for the Thursday edition of Locked On Penguins. Hunter and I will be back on Friday to recap this game, as well as get you ready for a big Metro showdown with the New Jersey Devils. But for now, for Hunter Hodes, I'm Patrick Damp. Thank you as always tuning in, and we will be back in your podcast feeds on Friday.